Hey everybody, today I'm going to put together a tomato pie. I have been searching and searching all over down here trying to find good tomatoes. Today I actually stopped by a little farmer's market they had. It was actually in a little strip mall, but it said farmer's market. I went in and I was very well pleased that I found some nice heritage or heirloom tomatoes. I got some orange and black and red and black and some orange. I'm going to explain what I'm doing over here in just a second. Right now I'm trying to roll out my pie dough, and as you can see, I'm not doing too well. If it comes apart like that, just piece it back together, because most of the ends we're going to be cutting off anyways. Looks like about right for me. So what I'm going to do, I'm doing the pie crust now because I want to get it in the oven and get it pre-baked a little bit. Put a little flour on there, and what I'm going to do is just roll this up on my rolling pin, and I made it break. That's okay. I can piece it back together in the pan. Pan here, and then just unroll it in the pan. And this will save you from picking it up and breaking it, even though it broke on me. I can't win them. So let's just put a little crust down in there. I grew up eating tomato pies very rarely. My mom never made them. My Grandma Jean did once. I'm not sure, because it's more of a southern recipe, so I'm not sure why or how she got the idea for it, but that's the first time I tasted it. I love these things, especially with fresh heirloom tomatoes. Okay, so we're going to make this nice little rustic. I've got the oven preheated at 450 for this part. This extra dough. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the mayonnaise that I have for the recipe, and I'm going to smear it on the bottom of the crust so it bakes. What this is going to do, along with, I'm going to put a little bit of cheese down here too. This is going to toast up a little bit and keep the mayonnaise and the liquid from the tomatoes and such, making my crust nice and doughy and wet. I want it nice and crisp, flaky. So I just coat a little bit on the bottom. It's going to help seal it, so all the fluids and the liquids from the tomatoes that are left in the tomato don't get down in there. And then I'm going to use just a little bit. I've got Colby Jack cheese. I'm just going to use a little bit, sprinkle on the bottom. That's going to crisp up too. Also keep it from developing any spots down there where the crust gets soggy from any fluids. And it's going to give it another little bit of texture and flavor down the bottom. So I'm going to put this in the oven at 450. I'm going to let it bake until it's just cooked, and then I'm going to pull it out and we'll get started on the rest of the ingredients for the tomato pie. I'll be back shortly. Hey everybody, we're back. I'm just now getting the pie crust out of the oven that I let cook for about 10 minutes. You can see that cheese melted up and got a little bit of toasty. We're gonna let this sit here and cool. I put it on a trivet instead of, well, at least you're going after somebody. I got it on trivet instead of putting it right on the cold burners because I'm afraid the cold steel against the hot glass is gonna burst. So always do that, put it on some kind of wood, hot pad or something like that. I'm going to decrease the oven down to 350 because we're not going to need it that high for the actual pie. And let's put together everything. Just before I put the pie crust in, you saw I took some of the sour cream, or the mayo, I'm sorry, the mayo, and put on the pie crust with some cheese. I have a half a cup of mayonnaise here. I'm gonna put maybe 2 heaping teaspoons of sour cream in it. I just like the tang that it gives. I'm gonna put that in there. And I'm gonna put about a teaspoon of lemon juice in here. Now, a lot of people use dry oregano and dry basil. That's perfectly fine if you don't have fresh. I have fresh growing out back, so I'm gonna use about 3 stems worth of the oregano and put that right into the mixture. Easiest way to do oregano, get it off the leaves, hold the top. I pulled a little piece off the top, hold the top, and then just scrape your hands down and the leaves come right off. So we're gonna do 3 of these, take the top off. Oops, I'm going to stem breaks, pull it down. Here's a baby one, we don't have much on this one. It's small, so it's falling apart on me. But I'm gonna put the oregano in there, get rid of the stem. You don't want to break down or bite down on the end of stems. I'm gonna save the rest of this oregano for the actual pie itself. So the mixture. I do have some basil. I want to put a little bit of basil in here. That basil is still on the floor, we're not gonna be using it. And I'm just gonna use 2 of the crowns of the basil. Just chop it up a little bit. Easiest way to do basil is stack it up. You stack the largest leaves at the bottom. These leaves are all about the same size. But if you stack them up like that and roll it up like a cigar, and then you just do little slices. Shift knob, if you want to call it that. That's called little slices. I'm not a professional chef. So we're gonna mix this all up. I do have about a teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm gonna put a little bit of the garlic powder in there also. Not all of it, the rest I'm gonna layer over. So this is gonna be our mixture that we're gonna put on top of the pie, or on top of the pie just before we put the final row of tomatoes or layer of tomatoes. I'm gonna go ahead and get off the rest of this basil and strip it down so it's ready to use on the pie. Like I said, I'm using fresh today. You can use either fresh or ground dried oregano. If you use ground dried oregano, you're going to use less of it than you would fresh because as it dries, it does intensify the effect. So you're not going to use as much. I probably got about a third of a cup. Not even that, probably. And these are so small, it's gonna be hard to roll them up. So I'm just gonna do my best. You don't wanna stab them, beat them. You're gonna tear them up, bruise it. You're gonna lose a lot of the flavor. So I'm gonna pull this part just enough. I don't want it totally broken down. I could probably just tore these, but there we got our basil. And I already washed this, and I brought it in from the garden. So we'll do the others. Oreganos. There's 2, 3, I think 4 will get it on this one. Okay, so we have 4 stems of oregano, probably about 4 or 5 inches long, and then the fresh basil. This we're just gonna put across the pie as well. Now let me get some of this stuff out of the way so I can get the pie crust over here so you can see what we're doing. This over here. There we go. So, as I told you before, I got my tomatoes draining here. You can also lay them out on a paper towel if you'd like to, and that'll help suck some of the moisture out. I did each layer, put a little bit of salt on each layer, put another layer, did more salt. That way the salt pulls out the juices in there and takes it out. So you can see, this is all the juice that you would have had in the pie, and it's not going to be in the pie now. It's still, that's still pouring out. So we're getting all this extra tomato juice out. If you want, you could save that, put it in a soup, any other kind of dish you'd like. I'm just gonna toss it. But, okay, so I've got the layer of cheese down here, it's already crisped up. This is gonna be my surprise. I've never done it with this. I've done it with bacon, but I'm gonna use my bourbon bacon jam. I did the other day. If you didn't see the video, I'll put a link to it down at the bottom here. But I'm just gonna put a layer of this bacon jam across the bottom of the pie and just spread it out. This is just gonna give it another layer of flavor. And I'm being very generous because this stuff is like candy. I've already went through 2 jars, and I think we just made it a week ago. I've been putting on crackers with goat cheese, cream cheese, just crackers. So there we go. Just one little layer, thin layer across the bottom. And then we're going to start layering our tomatoes. And I cut them pretty thin because I don't like to cut into it and the big tomato come apart and pull the entire piece apart. It's easier when you cut into it with your fork that it does come apart. I'm going to rearrange some of these and put some orange ones in here. Okay, here's one layer. And once I get that layer on, I'm going to put a layer of the Colby Jack cheese that I mentioned earlier in here. And mozzarella cheese. I've got about 1/4 cup. There's about 1/2 cup of the Colby and 1/4 cup of this mozzarella. And then we're going to put some of the oregano and basil. The reason I didn't leave the basil full leaves is because when you bite into a piece, whole leaf comes out. I want little pieces throughout. So there we got that. We're going to put a little bit of the garlic powder across this layer. We also want to salt and pepper it. I'm using Himalayan pink salt. You don't need to use a lot. Remember, I've already salted these tomatoes to get the liquid out of them, so we're not going to use a whole lot of that. For the fresh ground pepper, we're going to be using that. I'm not getting a lot. Let's tighten it up. There we go. And now we're going to put another layer of tomatoes. And let's see, I'm going to save 2 of those. Well, there's 3 there. That'll work. Put one here in the middle. So I want to save so I have some contrasting color on the top. So now we got this layer on. This is the point that we're going to just repeat exactly what we did before. Put some of the Colby Jack cheese, some of the mozzarella cheese, a little bit of the garlic powder. Like I said, we're doing every layer. We want every layer to have some taste to it. And then let's get the salt on this layer. And put one last layer on here. My mom's been sending me pictures all week. She's been video taping and sending to me. She's been FaceTiming and sending me all the tomatoes she's getting out of her garden and all of the things she's making with the BLTs. She fried some green tomatoes. She's really being rotten to me right now, teasing me since I was unable to find any good tomatoes in the area. Okay, so I'm gonna push this layer down, get everything settled in there. Put just one more layer of cheese, save a little bit for the top layer. Don't need a whole lot in here. And some mozzarella. And pepper. And just a little bit more of this. On this layer, I am going to put some red pepper flakes. Like you guys have seen in most of my videos, I like spicy. You don't have to put this in. This is totally optional, just like the bourbon bacon jam. But I want to add this just to give a little heat to it. So that's on the 3rd layer. Okay, now we're going to put the last layer of tomatoes on. But first, we're going to put our sour cream and mayonnaise mixture. We're just going to dollop it around. That way it's easier to spread. This is what's going to bubble down into those tomatoes and bring it all together. Pull this out if you can. And this is, you can make this year round. You can use store-bought tomatoes. But like I tell everybody, people these days don't know what a tomato actually tastes like. They're buying all these greenhouse tomatoes and from the store that have not ripened on the vine. They have no flavor. They're just not good. These are heirloom tomatoes. You can pick these just like you would an apple and just eat it. It's sweet, they have so much flavor. That's why I'd rather use heirloom tomatoes in just about everything I cook, except if it's a sauce, then I'll use some plum tomatoes. But if you can find heirlooms, by all means, you should use those. You can, like I said, use others from the store. I've also made this with grape tomatoes and Just took a lot longer spreading them out and getting them cut and everything. Another thing that I've done before is I've taken the tomatoes and instead of draining them like this and getting all the juice out, I actually put them on a tray with a cookie sheet or cookie cooling sheet on it, so the moisture or the liquid could drain out of it. Put it in the oven on low and cooked it for about 20-30 minutes and actually roasted the tomatoes. That was some really good flavor. Okay, so we're gonna put the last layer on here. I'm gonna save some of these so we can get some good color, contrasting. Get rid of this bowl. Okay, it's cool enough to hold. All right, I'm gonna finish this off with the last of my garlic powder. I'm gonna put just a little bit of this oregano and basil on the top. I'll sprinkle the rest after I get it out of the oven. I don't want to put it all on here because it could burn and won't look real good. So that's the last thing we'll do. And finally, we'll just finish off with the remainder of our cheese. And I'm going to put the recipe for this with the exact measurements, everything, and a link to my website with the entire thing down in the comments below. So there we go. We got the tomato pie ready to go in the oven. I'm going to tuck some of this basil under cheese so it doesn't burn as easily. Give it a last coating of this brown pepper. All right, I'm gonna put this in at 350. I'm gonna check in about 15-20 minutes and I'll let you know exactly how long it takes. Everybody's oven's different. So I usually check anything I'm baking 15, 20, 30 minutes until I know it's done. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. I'm getting ready to take the tomato pie out of the oven. Let's turn off the oven. Almost looks like a pizza. Actually, I think when my grandmother Jean was making this, and unfortunately it doesn't look like I got all the juice out of those tomatoes. I'm actually going to take a paper towel and sop a little bit of that up. I think when Grandma Jean made it, she put tomato sauce in there, made it more like a pizza. So maybe that's what I was thinking of. I went out and got some more oregano and fresh basil out of the garden. The other started wilting. I got some purple basil as well as sweet. My sweet basil has actually started going to flower and when I didn't get out there soon enough to harvest it. So once it does that, once you start getting the flowers on the top, if you don't get those cut off, the basil gets really bitter. So these are small enough, I'm just gonna pick them off here and throw them on. I'm gonna let it cool down and then we'll cut it and see how it is. But there you go. To get my gloves on here, I don't want to burn my hands. Here's our tomato pie with my bourbon bacon jam. I'll post pictures of it on my website and online so you can see what it looks like cut. And I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions or anything, give me some comments down below and I'll be glad to answer them. Y'all have a great day and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, y'all, I had to come back. I cut into this pie. I already cheated. I took a bite of it. That bourbon bacon jam, I can taste those flavors all the way through the pie. Look at this. You got the mayonnaise and the sour cream, went all the way, melt right through into that. The tomatoes are nice and tender. The crust is still crispy and flaky. It is delicious. You really have to try this. And look at this, all the way through. There is a little liquid. I told you there would be a little bit there, I found. But look at this. This is the most amazing, quickest pie I think I've ever done. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.